Good early afternoon to you. It is Tuesday, May 27th at 12:06 p.m. Got a little bit to talk about. Being an Indy-centric person myself, since I live in central Indiana. Thought I'd talk about the big sports weekend in Indiana, give you a little update on what Trey Kaufman-Wren is up to, and listen to what you guys had, what your thoughts were on the massive sports weekend here in central Indiana. Before I do it, I want to thank our friends at Home Field Apparel. Head over to homefieldapparel.com, enter Boiled25 for 15% off. And also, when you're on campus, there's one place to go to get a bite to eat, to have incredible service, and to just enjoy all the wonderful things that come on a day of on campus when nobody's there. One of those summer days I've talked about before. Head to AJ's. Head to the fire station. Turn left. You're going to see the blue lights. EatAJ's.com. You can order ahead, or you can just go there, enjoy yourself. Like I said, with the greatest service anywhere. Let's say anywhere. So EatAJ's.com. AJ's by the fire station. Burgers, beef, and beer. So, yeah, it was an interesting week in Indianapolis. It's not unprecedented by any means. There have been, 3 or 4 times when the Indy 500 and a Pacers playoff game has happened on the same day. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts around the Pacers loss, how they lost it, why they lost, that sort of thing. I'm going to talk a lot about IndyCar today because there's been quite a bit that's happened since I talked to you last time. And then, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about TKR, what he's doing to get ready for the season, how excited you can be, should you temper your enthusiasm, so on and so forth. Okay, first, let's look at the Pacers. All right, so the Pacers are up 2-1, pretty damn good position to be in as they welcome the Knicks yet again tonight to Gainbridge. They'll play at 8 p.m. Why did they lose the last game? I mean, they had the Knicks exactly where they wanted them. 20-point lead. Brunson in foul trouble. Cat starting to step towards foul trouble. I think maybe he had 3 and Brunson had 4, if I remember correctly. And it felt like the Pacers had all the momentum, and then they just kind of backed out of the first half. It reminded me a bit of some of the way Purdue played last season, where they just weren't opportunistic. I talked about that over and over last season, that Purdue was a team that just didn't take advantage of the good work they had built, the things they had built up. And the Pacers surely did that. It seemed kind of simple. You're like, okay, they're not playing like themselves. They're not playing with the pace they have offensively. Their defense couldn't get it done. And the Knicks absolutely ratcheted up the pressure at the same time. When you look at the game, you're like, okay, why were they not opportunistic? Why did they not take advantage? It looks to me, and I might be oversimplifying things. I tried to do that regardless of what sport I watch. But it looks to me when Aaron Nesmith went down, so did the Pacers, and so did their defense. The funny thing is, we all think about the Pacers and their pace of play as such a big story, right? The super exciting team to watch. People like me who aren't really big NBA fans like watching the Pacers play because they put up shots so regularly and they shoot the 3 so well. But the defense creates offense. The stops create pace. And when you can't stop a team over and over and over again, especially in the fourth quarter like the Pacers did, it's gonna create major problems for that offense. The Pacers did not play with any pace, but then they never got any rhythm and they didn't shoot the 3 well. That's kind of a deadly situation for a team. At the same time, on the other side, Karl Anthony Towns, some would say was spicy. Some would say he was zesty in the fourth quarter, but he was absolutely in control, and he pushed the Knicks to victory as Brunson looked on due to foul trouble. The Pacers still had chances at the end. They just couldn't get it done. Is it a huge deal? I kind of think it is. I mean, it felt to me like the Knicks took all the momentum back. Perhaps this is just like the Milwaukee series. I think we had the same situation happen. The Pacers came out and crushed them in game 4 and then went to Milwaukee and beat them up again. So maybe that's going to happen again. This team can grab back control. I don't know. It didn't feel very good though, and the fact that Naismith is injured now with an ankle issue, he'll be fine. Karl Anthony Towns also had a foot or ankle injury happen during the game, where I think it was coming off that incredible drive and dunk where he came down awkwardly. So both teams are going to be licking their wounds a little bit. And I think this deep into the playoffs, it really doesn't matter. Those type of injuries don't matter. Guys will play through it, no problem. And Naismith with a little bit of preparation before the game to kind of know what he's getting into, I think he'll be fine. But he is extremely important. And his ability to physically play about any guard in the league on defense really, really matters to the Pacers. Like I said, Pacers tip off 8 o'clock tonight from Gamebridge. It's a big one. Now, on to the Indy talk this weekend. I got to attend the Indy 500, one of my favorite events, if not my very favorite event of the year. I sat in the Southwest Vista with my family. It was a good race. 13 different leaders. I think that was a record, if I remember correctly. But the race didn't have the same back and forth that we've become so accustomed to with the DW12 chassis and the slightly revamped version of it in the past few years. Again, I think some of the issues with how that chassis handles reared its head. I think IndyCar really needs to do something big in the offseason to get that chassis right. But at the same time, still a pretty exciting race with one of the fan favorites, of course, Alex Palou, finishing the thing off and closing out in the end as he was given chase by Ericsson. A couple interesting sidebars for me because I'm a dork. One big one is Ganassi believes in the power of red. I said this coming into about like a month and a half ago. I talked about IndyCar a little bit on here, and I talked about Ganassi cars that are red win. I know it's a weird thing to say because obviously the Target livery was so dominant for so long, but it's not always. If you even go back to when Ganassi was a part owner and Emerson Fittipaldi won with the orange-red car, every time Ganassi has a red car or another color car, it's not going to be the other color car wins, even if it's Scott Dixon. And maybe they need to do something about that because I love Dixon as much as the next guy. I'd like to see him win more. I don't know if we can find a red sponsor for him to run under, but when I saw Palou's predominantly red nose this year, I was like, uh-oh. Here we go. Here comes your winner. And Palou just keeps his foot on the gas, literally and figuratively, as he has this entire season. Continues to dominate. He's making history. He's right there with AJ Foyt. I can't remember which season. They said very similar level of domination where there's nobody near him right now in the points race. And speaking of points, one thing that was really interesting after the race, of course, since we last talked, you had all the issues with Penske Racing, and I didn't talk about Tim Cindric being fired because it was announced right after I got off the stream. But after that, Tim Cindric was fired by Penske along with two others, Moyer, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Three of the most important guys in the operation at Team Penske. If you don't watch racing, but you care about sports, it was a big deal because that's like Roger Penske firing his nephew. Cindric had been part of that organization forever, and Penske felt like he had to do it for the integrity of the sport. Well, after the race, a couple guys failed tech inspection. If you don't pay too much attention, this might not matter to you, but a really unusual high penalty to these teams that broke the rules. Team Andretti, or I can't remember, Andretti Global, I think is what it's called now, really paid a major price by Ericsson being sent to the back. Ericsson was running near the front, especially in the last 40 laps or so. Had a great race, and I don't want to say it's unprecedented penalty, but it's close. To be that close to winning, to be in second place, and then being set back to 32nd or 33rd. Can't remember which place he finished in finally. Cost him about $100,000 to $150,000, it looks like, because he led a significant amount of laps. On top of that, they also had a $100,000 fine for Andretti Global, and I think there was subtraction of points. In case you're wondering about precedent, what generally has happened in IndyCar when you've had somebody fail inspection after a race is there'll be a deduction of points and a fine. Usually a $25,000 to $100,000 fine to the team. And this has happened even after victories. I think as recently as Alexander Rossi, I think, if I'm thinking correctly, won a Grand Prix at Indy. and he was found that he had broken some rules, or whether intentionally or unintentionally afterwards. It looks to me like these, and maybe I'm being too soft on this. Maybe you guys can tell me how I'm being soft too on this. But it looks to me like these were just an absolute hammer. The way they came down on both Prema Racing and Andretti. Of course, Prema Racing, they had the pole sitter Schwartzman had a little problem in the pits. Major problem in the pits, we're being real honest. I think he ended up breaking the leg of one of his crew members when he came in hot and came into the left. Takuma Sato also had problems in the pits that took him out of contention. He was up near the front the entire day, and that was tough to watch because I love Sato. And he's one of the guys that I want to see him win one more and get with the 6 other 3-time winners. I really... and time's ticking. I think I may do a quick cast, a podcast at some point, just talking about the age of IndyCar and how some of the best drivers in the field now are getting up in their middle and upper 40s, and how much of an overhaul we're going to see in the sport over the next few years. There's a lot of changes coming. There's going to be a change in chassis in the next couple of years, on top of other manufacturers hopefully brought in to create greater competition. And I think it's always good to have more manufacturers than just 2. Of course, in the dark days, the IRL, just 1 at times. So there'll be major changes, obviously, with not just drivers aging, but also some owners are aging. So we'll see how long we've got of this era. I think it's a pretty great era in the level of competition. Fox Sports brags about having one of the biggest numbers the very biggest numbers in the last 20 years during the race. 8.4 million viewers, 7.5 average were watching the race during the entire race. That's the biggest since 2008, in case you're curious about that. All the promotion really worked. But I got a bone to pick with Fox. And I think it's kind of a major bone, especially if you're from Indy, and I sound like a homer here probably. But before the race, they put Tom Brady in the fastest seat in racing. The crowd reacted with pretty notable boos. On top of that, Gronkowski was also in the house. And then they had Jeter and A-Rod. I don't think I'm the only Indianapolis-based person that said, "What the hell are you doing? Why did you not have more of an Indianapolis flavor to the celebrities that were up front and center?" And maybe I'm just missing it because I was in person. I didn't see the telecast. I still haven't watched it just because I didn't think it was that much of a compelling race to go back and watch it again after being at the race. Generally, I'll do that, especially if it's got a closing chapter like the previous couple races. But I didn't do that this year, so maybe I'm missing. You guys can tell me where I'm missing it, if you will. That'd be great. Finally, I want to talk about Trey Kaufman-Renn. Golden Black talked about what he's been doing in the offseason. He's hosting a camp called Camp Better. And the thing that I thought that was really interesting about this, a lot of guys have done this. Smith hosted a youth camp recently for players, I think up to, I want to say into high school, but it was a huge camp. If you've seen some of the video of him talking to the crowd, pretty cool to see. This one is a little bit, it's a lot more low key, according to what Kaufman-Renn says himself. And one of the big differences is it's almost like a retreat. I thought that was really cool, really different. They have big time players sign up for the camp, and then he teaches them a lot about technique and how to play the game better. Obviously, you're not going to find a big man that can score quite as well as TKR in America right now. Really, he's in a class of his own in his ability to just go get buckets. He admitted he has some work to do, especially on the glass. And he talked about that during the Golden Black interview. He talked about how he's going to be in the position to succeed more and to go get rebounds a little bit more. The jury's still out on if that's true. I always think that there are a couple things that are decisions on the basketball court. Obviously, Trey Kaufman-Renn had to shield himself a bit from foul trouble last year. So there were times where it didn't look like he was going all out on the glass, especially on defense, because they couldn't afford to have him get another cheap foul. But the funny, ironic part of this is Trey Kaufman-Renn, this camp, this retreat environment, about not only getting the guys right physically and through a technique standpoint, but second, getting their minds right and having them become better players mentally. He talks about that specifically. I thought it was funny because at times he looked like a guy that let's just say he has a visible temper, which I can appreciate because I'm the same way when I play sports or do about anything. So he knows the importance of getting yourself mentally prepared for the game and preparing yourself mentally even before you get on the court during practices and your routine and all that stuff like that. Of course, his philosophy background, he's not just a guy who studies philosophy or majors in philosophy. He's also a guy that I think really is a deep thinker and just a different bird. I've been saying that for years, how much I appreciate the fact that this is a Purdue type guy. He is not a just normal run-of-the-mill college basketball player. And I think that's part of the reason Purdue fans appreciate him so much. But I look forward to seeing how effective not only these off-season efforts are for him and other guys as they train and dial in and tune up, but also the relationship that he and Oscar Clough develop. You also had Matt Painter sounding off about the importance of Burgess and Jacobson getting bigger and stronger in the offseason. He said Jacobson has actually gained quite a bit of weight as he gets ready to, or I think he's already in the U19 tryouts. Truth be told, I haven't stayed very tuned in. Looking forward to good news on that, seeing him make it. But a lot of things to keep our eyes open for on the Purdue side of things. I'm looking forward to some football updates as well. The problem I do see that there are some signings, both from the, I don't even know if you call it the portal at this point, but just guys coming in from other schools, and also some guys from the class of 26 are announcing their verbal to Purdue. I never get too excited about a verbal because the idea of commitment among these young recruits is something that it's really the wrong word to use, isn't it? Commitment. But I probably sound a little jaded. It's because I am. So let me talk a little bit to you guys. Like I said, today is instead of a quick cast, a lunchtime wrap. Maybe you're grabbing a bite to eat as at work. Regardless of what it is, I'm glad you're here, tuned in. And a couple of you are here. Steve Azano says first. Yeah, you are. You're there. You're there first, Steve. Well done. Boiler Bugle says Pacers collapse is hard to watch. They looked so out of sorts in the fourth quarter. They did, and they didn't. The normal kind of would you say hop in their step? The normal amount of energy that they play with was not. It was not easy to find. They just didn't have it, and the Knicks took it to them. Knicks defensively were tough. Guys in the Knicks came off the bench, outscored the Pacers bench, which is unheard of. Pacers bench has been kind of the secret sauce at the end of the season going into the playoffs for them, and they didn't have it. Steve Azana says, one of my buddies put down money on the Knicks money line when they were down 20 on a couple $100. Yeah, that if in case you didn't know that, it ties the biggest comeback ever in the history of the Knicks organization in the playoffs. That's a big deal. Knicks have been around a long time, won a lot of playoff games. So, and the Pacers should, do you say embarrassed? That was a choke job, if we're being real honest, regardless of the reason. Just like the Knicks choked a game away, that's a pretty good choke for the Pacers, and it hopefully they'll come back motivated. We'll see. Jay Westfall says, "Ugh, my driver willpower never recovered." Yeah, that's a hard position to come from the back of the field. I think he finished in the middle, around 16 or 13. One thing that I thought was interesting, I looked pretty deeply into the prize money and where guys, the purse. I thought it was a really interesting thing to me that Abel, who didn't qualify, got $150,000. And I know guys that are on regular circuit members on the within the IndyCar series, guys they obviously get a bigger payout. But I did some math, and it looks like you get $150,000 just for trying to make the race. And many guys made just $150,000. I believe Andretti made less than that, and a couple others did too. I'll come back to this, but very noteworthy to me. You had Elio Castroneves made $137,000 at the race. Jack Harvey, $116,000. Kyle Larson, the one race winner one race runner, from NASCAR, only made 102. He had a horrible day in IndyCar and NASCAR. Rinus VeeKay, $158,000. Marco Andretti, $102,000. And then Ilott and Abel both made $150-something thousand. Palou cleared $3.8 million. After that, the drop off to Dave Malukas. Well, actually, that's not right. Pato O'Ward made nearly $1 million, which pretty big number for a guy who finished third, $951,000. And the numbers go down from there. But it looks to me like it seems to me they got about $100 to $150,000 guaranteed for being a regular member of the IndyCar circuit and attempting to qualify. And then on top of that, another $350,000 from various sources that they all got. Regardless of what the sources are. So around $600,000 was the average purse for a guy who was in the race. Ryan Hunter-Reay had a pretty good race before having problems in the pits. $274,000 earnings for him. Takuma Sato nearly cleared $300,000. So it's pretty good living. If you can get into that line of work, you should hop in. I highly suggest it. Blake Widmer says, hey, I caught a live stream. Nice. I really like Palou. I love Palou. He's another personality that there's a couple of these guys that I think are really easy to cheer for. He's one of those guys. I don't feel that way about every guy who races IndyCar at all, but I do like Palou. And looks like to me, if he stays dedicated to IndyCar, there is no reason to believe he can't just stay an absolute dominant force. The way he races reminds me a bit of Rick Mears in his prime, and his patience, the way he sizes people up. He'll take risks when he needs to, but he doesn't take needless risks, and he's fast as hell, and he's got a good team. He's got Ganassi equipment under him, which is a very good place to be. So lot to see there. Purdue, Blake continues. Purdue marching band looked great. They always do. They show out during the day, and I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Do they still march the majority of the track? Because it could be that I just missed it and I didn't get to my seats in time. We were there about 2 hours before the scheduled, an hour and 30 minutes before the scheduled start of the race. There was a little bit of rain that delayed it. And I always get emotional before the race happens. So many things I think that get me. I've talked about it here on my podcast before, but Purdue is just another element of why I love the race. The fact that they're such an integral part of it. So Blake continues, they're trying to draw in other sports fans. Brady, Jeter, A-Rod market outside of Indy makes sense for TV more than the in-person fans. Yeah, I understand the idea, but they didn't all have to be really the antithesis of Indianapolis, did they? I mean, like, you could have gotten guys from California, could have gotten guys from Chicago, and looped in a lot of I don't want to say casuals, but that's really what you are, right? If you're not a big IndyCar fan, just felt like a bit of a thumb in the eye to me. So I really don't have a massive problem with Jeter at all. I kind of like Jeter, but yeah. I'll keep going. Blake Widmer says getting Peyton would have been great. Yeah, they've had Manning there before. They've had Reggie Miller have a big role. They've had Reggie Wayne. I mean, there are guys that are in Indy that are Indy legends that to have them show up would have been pretty good, but they didn't go that way. So Boiler Bugle said, I love the booing of Brady. Same. I was part of it. They think global celebrities will bring more eyes, etc. There was also an interview segment with Newgarden and NYC. Very weird, but I guess it's appealing elsewhere. Yeah, that NYC thing, though, that's pretty normal. In fact, it's absolutely normal. That after the Monday practice, which is a somewhat new thing, they used to do it right after the race. Monday. What's that, right? Yeah, so the Monday practice the week before the race, after the Sunday qualifying, after bump day, and now it's the Fast 12 and Fast 6 day. They have a kind of a media blitz, and one of the places they send these guys, especially the sitting champ, is to New York. They go ring the stock, the NASDAQ. Is it NASDAQ or they go ring the bell at the beginning of the day. That's not abnormal at all. That's happened. And they used to have a dummy IndyCar go. they've had it multiple times, I think, go up and down the streets in Manhattan. So yeah, they're trying to pull in fans from elsewhere, and there's some creativity that happens there. And there's even more that needs to happen. But the fact that they had 8 million people watching the race, I think part of that story is the fact that the blackout was removed locally. I think you had a lot of Indianapolis eyes. I haven't seen a number say that yet. How many? Was it 1 million fans in the state of Indiana watching it? I bet it was close. And I think that makes a huge difference. So it's a good thing. Boiler Bugle contends, love the moon. Oh, well, you already said that. Jack-o'-lantern 22, J Money says, how can they call the Indy 500 the greatest spectacle in racing when the Coca-Cola 600 is an extra 100 miles? Yeah, it makes you think. Yeah, of course it does, because the Coca-Cola 600, there's nothing like it. They always say that, don't they, Jay? And he's tongue in cheek there. One day, Jay, you should come to the race. If only you had a place to stay when the Indy 500. If only you would have been invited. Jackass. Craig Maccabee. I don't know why he's got the eyes there. So good to see you, Craig. Hope you're well. Brian T says, how close do you think the Big Ten race will be in basketball, especially with Yaxel now officially joining University of Michigan? I think it'll be a game difference at the end. I think it could be. I hope this team understands the bigger prize that's where their eyes should be, but also without the Big Ten championship, or at least contention of it, you're not going to get the seeding you want or need come March. But what is it? Is it wrong to say? Yeah, four losses, standard thing for me in the conference. Will probably win the conference, and who gets a good start is going to make a lot of difference. That seems to be when Purdue. Especially the last couple of years, they have a problem with those first 2 games in December, but then they start hitting their stride in January and rip off a few. It used to be February was the magic month where Painter and company hit their stride. So we'll see what happens. But Yaxel's awesome, by the way. I think that's the name the way you say his name. He's an incredible player. So he'll be a tough guard for Purdue. Tough guy to defend, no doubt. Let's see. Jack-o'-lantern again says Pacers Knicks, one of the few ways BS gets divided, fist fights, etc. Yeah, it's really rough. Very, very. Jay and I are just, as you can detect from me, horribly heated Pacers and Knicks fans. Knick fans. Yeah, it's violent. If we're being real honest. Of course, Jay is he's a native of that area. I don't know if I'm at liberty to talk freely about all that stuff, so I don't like to get into deeply. But yeah, he was a Knicks fan growing up. He, like me, I think he's backed away a little bit from the NBA, but loves playoff basketball. I think who doesn't, especially when they're, when it's crunch time, you'll see guys do incredible things. And my son keeps saying, when's the big moment of the playoffs, right? Because there's always a shot. Usually it's in the corner, somebody doing something after the buzzer, or as the clock expires, whatever. I think we've already seen those big moments, in my opinion. I think we've seen the most memorable moments of the playoffs already. I would love to see the Pacers continue to have more of them to propel them. I think if they can get through the Knicks, though, there's some parallels with the '90s Pacers team that got to the finals, but on the finals back then, you had to deal with Shaquille O'Neal. Pacers, I think, had to go through the Lakers, if I'm remembering correctly. Smits was good, but he's no Shaquille O'Neal. And the Davis brothers as well. I know they're not brothers. But that said, Pacers got to seize the moment, because you lose this one, and a 3-game series gets a lot dicier, a lot tougher to take home. So Blake Vidmer says, Michigan definitely a contender with Yaxel. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Denver Graham says, I watched the 500 for the first time ever on Sunday. That's cool. As a central Indiana native that speaks loudly to the stupidity of blacking out the race in alienated generations of potential fans. So you're the guy they were trying to get in the track, though, Denver. And it is, the blackout idea is a dumb, arcane idea. It shouldn't exist anymore. They shouldn't have the blackout. I think I talked about this the last quick cast. It shouldn't exist. The fact they lifted it because the sellout is great, but they've had other sellouts and they didn't lift it. It's a dumb idea. And I really don't think it's going to change the minds of almost anyone who's going to the race anyway. I don't think that's the thing that does it. In fact, like my wife's family, they didn't go to the race when she was growing up generally. They lived in earshot of the track. They lived off of Kessler on the west side where you could hear the race going on. You could hear qualifications happening. They didn't want to go. In fact, they kind of hated the fact that the race affected traffic and the way they got around during the month of May. But when we started dating and I think my wife went with me a couple times before we got married. I think she became kind of a fan. She still goes, went this year because LBD was traveling, and it was good time. But I don't think that blackout keeps anyone from going or it influences anybody to go. I just think it's a dumb policy. It's an old policy. Boilermaker 63 says the most drama surrounded 500 since 81, probably with the penalties before and after. First 100 laps were weird too. Yeah, that's a good point. Forgot to talk about that. The first 5 laps were bizarre. I mean, like if you're anything like me, you have friendly bets going on. You know, you have a pool or whatever with your family. And we had a snake draft too. So I got involved in 2 of them, had a bad day. My picks were horrendous. But my first choice pick was Scotty McLaughlin. And if you listen and watch the highlight of him taking the car against the wall, the pit wall, he rev the engine up as he's warming the tires, and he's just a very good race car driver. If you look at his face when that car came to a rest going into 1, he looked like he was in tears, and that is a horrible month. Sometimes that happens. Guys just have bad months. That was an awful month for McLaughlin. Then you had Jack Harvey, who was forced up, push Andretti into the wall. Tough to avoid, but Andretti, I keep saying this, man. He's got to handle this like it's not a hobby. He looks worse and worse every year, with the exception of that pole a couple years ago. He just doesn't look like that matters to him. So you had 2 very, very quick yellows. You had Scott Dixon's brakes on fire, and it was just they said it was not a big deal. But whenever you see flames shooting out of the back of a car that early in the race, I think it really gets people's attention, especially a guy who's a contender. It's funny, my brother, he had all but guaranteed that it was Dixon's year again, and I understood why he thought that, because he's so solid and he's such a great technician behind the wheel. But, right away he had some issues, and that was tough to see. But very, very weird first 5 laps. It's just a bizarre, before the thing even got started, shades of Roberto Guerrero on that really, really cold race. I think that was in 1992 when, he crashed the car on a parade lap. Whoa, speaking of one of those things that you had to be there to see it. I know there's video out there. I highly suggest go check out the, I think, do they call it the parade lap, when the 2 Blackhawks were circling with the cars. I knew it was going to happen. I knew they were going to do that, but that sort of flyover, they had 2 flyovers, which is great. But the flyover with the cars was such a surreal moment. Like it was very cool. And we sit down low. We sit in row B in the Southwest Vista. You had to make the decision to look up or look down, because my eyesight, I couldn't capture both of it except for when they're coming at us in 1 the second time around. First time they came around, they dropped into 1, and they weren't on top of us like they were. If you were in 3 and 4, you got a show, because they were right on the fence line. It was incredible theater if you're into that stuff. And when you take military machines and race cars in the same place, I'm like a 10-year-old boy. It's an incredible thing for me. It blew my mind. But the height off the ground of these Blackhawks was amazing. And they say that was I think that's a special ops group, aviation division. And those guys are the best of the best pilots, but still, it made my heart beat faster, because I was like, this is just wild. Such close quarters, even closer on the main stretch. And they showed that off, of course, on Carb Day. My brother was there, and I posted the video incredible. Blew my mind. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. Denver Graham says, my pool pick was Ryan Hunter-Reay. Good pick. He raced well. Felt like a true Boilermaker when he pulled defeat from the jaws of victory. Yeah, I think he stalled it, I believe, in the pits. There's always mistakes in the pits, and it's kind of a discounted part of the Indy 500. There's some things, there's no margin for error for these guys in the pits. But there's the pits matter. There's always a thing that might seem inconsequential, like a save or a great piece of driving by the eventual winner. Palou had that moment early where he was in an absolute cluster coming into one, and he pretty much laid off at the right time, and it could have been the school's out for him very, very early in the race. But there's luck, there's an immense amount of skill. But the funny thing about it, when you've got this force of nature happening where you have a guy that, like Pagenaud, I referenced Pagenaud on the last QuickCast, but Pagenaud and Palou have this parallel where they were dominant all month and just felt like this was a coronation. And it was just a matter of time before Palou got around him again. But the pass was incredible. That got him the lead the last time. And Ericsson was battling to the end. You just couldn't get any closer. Cars, like I said, weren't quite as... some of you might have a problem with the fact that the cars were passing was so prevalent in previous races. You had 40 to 50 lead changes, but this time you had 13 different leaders. And when Connor Daly got the lead, that's always fun. Connor Daly and Santino Ferrucci continued their high rate of success in Indy. I think Ferrucci's never finished outside the top 10. I think he finished 6th, if I remember correctly. But incredible day again for those two guys who are absolute fan favorites, and it'd be great to see one of those guys. Our guy Ed Carpenter won't win a race, I don't think now. I think he's too far along in his career. You've got to have a lot of guts too to run up to the front, especially if you don't start in the front. I don't think he's going to get another front row start in his career. So when you're not up there, when you're at racing from the start or from the front, it's a lot harder, as we saw with the Penske cars. Boilermaker 63 says Denver, it was rough. I don't cheer for RHR specifically, but it would have been cool to see him win as a one-off. It's always cool to see those guys come in, and a guy like Ryan Hunter-Reay, which it feels like he's got plenty left in the tank to race, but one reason or another doesn't have a full-time ride and has made his choice. Okay, I'm just going to drop in for the 500. A little bit like Townsend Bell used to. Townsend Bell was a guy that I always liked, really liked him. I think Scott Goodyear may have come back for a one-off a couple times. Another guy that fans loved. But I always liked Townsend Bell because he would come from May, and he was so darn fast. He was so fast. So, and he always had a flair for the dramatic. Like the dude's got... always had a cool looking car too. But yeah, those one-off guys, every now and again, one of them will get it done. But a guy like Ryan Hunter-Reay clearly still has the chops. So, all right, that's about it. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to today's lunchtime wrap. I don't know if this is going to be a thing either. I never know. And the inconsistency is what you come back for and what you love here from my QuickCast. But thanks to Jay Money for sounding off, and we'll talk later about how angry we are about this series, I'm sure. Hope you have a great day. God bless you. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. See ya.